Hello.
Hello.
Hey, all right. Thank you for joining us.
This
Okay.
call seems smaller than it originally anticipated.
Yes, so that was part of the delay is that about maybe, I think 30 minutes ago, two people told us they weren't going to be able to make it, and we've not been able to get a hold of Grady. So I don't know if there was a time zone issue there. So for right now, it's this. I have a feeling Grady will probably show up at probably about 8 o'clock. And then Mary and Noobs will not be able to join us. So it's going to be the three of us, but I like the idea that now we're able to actually get someone who's on the admin and mod side for things to be a part of this. So if you're ready to just get talking, we will get the show on the road, finally.
I am ready, but before I say anything else,
Okay.
I do have to point out that forum moderators and site admins are volunteers, not employees. So while the things that I say on this might reflect the opinions of the moderators and admins, we have been discussing this behind the scenes, they should not be taken as any sort of official position from Rooster Teeth. We're not on the payroll. We cannot speak for the company.
Yes, what he said. So in case that was not obvious to anyone. I know they have red tags that look exactly like the cast and crew ones, but they are not actually employed by the company. They use their own judgment. They do, they are just totally volunteer people like the Guardians and all that stuff. So don't go yelling to RT that their policy is terrible if it's coming from mods and admins. That's a more personal issue and all that stuff. So let me make sure I got my windows where I need them to be so that way I don't totally screw this up. Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming to the stream. It's a little bit of a different format than we were expecting, but this is where we are right now. So just to give you a brief idea of who you're actually talking to, there's three of us on the call right now. I am, obviously, in case anybody hasn't figured this out, because you're on my channel, I am Jen. I am Low Zelda on the Rooster Teeth website. I've technically been on it for 2 years, but really only been active on it for 1. So as far as my lifetime on there, I'm still pretty young, despite how often I post and put all my crap everywhere. And then I am being joined by 2 other individuals. If one of you wants to introduce yourself.
Sure. My name is James. I am the Sedgen on the website, or just a middleman in the feed right now. I'm usually just a middleman everywhere, but when I signed up about 6 years ago, just a middleman would not fit on the Rooster Teeth's website, so I went with the Sedgen. I will be kind of moderating the call today, so I'll be keeping an eye on the stream. If you guys have comments or questions, I'll keep track of them so that we can let the subject matter experts talk, and I'll just help facilitate conversations as best I can.
And I'm Demano. I'm a site admin. I've been on RT for about 3 days now. I'm really like it.
Very funny. So, but seriously, how long you been on?
I've been on Rooster Teeth literally since day one, when they went from being just a regular white page with a bunch of links in a PHPBB forum to actually being a community site. And like all of the admins and moderators, started out as just a regular user like everyone else, and then over time got promoted. But still volunteer is kind of weird.
Fabulous. All right. So to kind of talk about why we were here, I don't want to get into specifics because this specifics make it sound like this is about one particular incident, and this is not. There has been a growing issue over just even the time that I've been here. I've kind of seen it. It seems to pop up every couple of months where there is an issue with some kind of harassment going on that eventually culminates in someone who is not hidden from kind of the main view of the site. It is a user that is recognizable that ends up leaving the site, and then there's backlash from that, and everyone starts hollering. But the problem is everything ends up being really vague. So what we're here to kind of talk about is this issue of harassment that's kind of creeping up. And because we're not going to talk about why harassment is bad. I think everyone agrees harassment is not, it's not good. No one ever goes, yay, bullies. No one says that. That is not the issue here. We all agree this is bad, but nobody seems to be able to, they talk about it in vague journal posts and just say I'm being harassed, and then people leave, and nothing more happens with that. And that's how we keep ending up in this cycle of it happening over and over again. So we're here to kind of talk about really what is the harassment that is going on, and what you can do about it from there. So James, I don't know if you want to jump in, and because you've got our little list that we were talking about earlier, I think.
Right, and I think it's difficult to have this conversation. Out of a lot of people have been asking, like, well, who is it? What's going on? And out of respect for those people, it's a difficult question of do you want to share a lot? Is that respectful to the person? And it's kind of this weird in between spot. And I'm more of a cautious individual, and I prefer to err on the side of caution. So when people leave, obviously the mods and admins have been great in the past couple of days of coming out very publicly and saying, hey, look, we're here to help. We're volunteers. We're giving our time, and we can't do anything about it unless stuff is reported to you. And it's unfortunate when people leave without really saying much of anything other than a few casual comments of harassment, that it's hard to act on that. So I think that was really the genesis of this, is that we want to make sure as we're all community members, that our community is a warm and inviting place, but at the same time, when there are occasional jerks out there, we know what to do. So that's really where the genesis of this started.
Yeah, and harassment is excuse me, harassment is actually specifically forbidden in the terms of use. I'm just going to read some of it off.
Yeah, go for it.
By using the service, you agree not to transmit content that harasses or defames another person. It's literally right there, which means if someone is violating that, the first thing that we recommend is block the person if it's happening to you. That actually solves it usually. A lot of people don't have the tenacity to work around that. And if that doesn't work, let the site staff, the admins, and the moderators know about it. Give us links. If it's in private messages, give us screenshots. And it is literally our job to deal with that if you bring it to us. So those are basically the two steps that you should be following, because I've occasionally seen people try to handle it on their own. I guarantee the weapons we have are better than the weapons you have for dealing with this.
Yeah, and I think that's the big thing that's come out of a lot of this, is if somebody, I've seen it in other posts that people have made, or in the comments to my own post talking about what we're going to do here today, is that there's a lot of people who didn't even know there was a block button, and people who go, okay, well, if I'm having this issue, who do I actually go to? And I know that you guys are out and about, because I float all over different forums all over the place, so I see different mods and admins that are doing their thing. But there's people who only live in specific parts of the site, and if there's not an active mod or admin in that area, it is a lot more vague to somebody like that. So I think that is the important thing to say, that if you are having an issue that actually needs, that blocking a person is not enough, because I did not know this, because I've only had to block a couple people, and it went to areas that I totally broke the game, that I did not need to, that I don't go to. But apparently blocking, that will mean, so that way you can't see their posts, they can't see you, but that does not prevent interaction in the chat rooms. If you live in a chat room, that is still, you can still talk to whoever you've tried to block, or they can talk to you and all that stuff in there. You can block people. The block option is underneath your friends on your profile, on the left-hand side, underneath your friends and your watching list. Or maybe is it even that far? I should actually, before I start talking, actually find somebody.
It's when you're viewing someone else's profile, it's underneath their friends list.
There we go. That's what I was trying to say. Words are hard. So yeah, if I really wanted to block James right now, I totally could. But yeah, underneath their friends list, there is a little red button that says block, and that will block them. And then on your profile is where your block list is, so you can see who all you have blocked if you ever decide that you want to unblock somebody. If blocking is not enough, if it's really bad or whatever, you can talk to an admin or a mod. And if you don't know if you don't go, oh, I know I can talk to Demano or Data Laughing or Count 3D or anything like that, the info tab on the Rooster Teeth site, it's next to the members one, it's between members and events. The cast and crew button on it will actually, below all Rooster Teeth proper, is the list of all the admins and the mods. And I don't think a lot of people knew that was there either.
And I believe that's also sorted in order of activity.
Oh,
so whoever
that's
is at the
handy.
beginning of the list is the one who was most recently active on the website.
I did not know that, so that makes that handy.
So, Damano, you brought up 2 points that I'd like to throw a few questions that I've seen as I was ranging through journals and other posts in the past week. But we cite the the terms of use, and it's kind of as close to legalese as Rooster Teeth will allow it, and serious as they take it.
Yep.
But I know Grady had mentioned in a few places that do you think there should be like a code of conduct that is more in plain language, not legalese, and in a much more accessible place, like right on the members tab of the website? And I know that's outside of the admin's control; it's more of a technology web design issue. But I mean, do you think that there would be value in having like a code of conduct that spells it out in very plain language in a very prominent place in the website for people to see?
Not
only do we agree with that, we are currently discussing how to do it.
Oh,
awesome.
Beautiful. That is awesome and good to know. I think one of the other things that, while we're kind of talking about this harassment thing, is there's also the issue where I know harassment is happening. I've been on the receiving end of some of it, and that is something we can talk about later. So I know this is something that's popping up, but I also think we're kind of in, and this is a little bit touchy, that we're in a weird place where that line of what actually constitutes harassment is getting a little fuzzy, and there are some people who might be taking things that maybe just aren't worded well or just are criticism and aren't just overtly positive and going, I'm being harassed because they're not being nice to me. And that is an important distinction to make, that someone not being nice to you, not actively being nice to you, is not harassment, and that in itself kind of makes the problem of the actual harassment worse, because now nobody can draw the line for who the actual bad guys are, and kind of trivializes the problem that's actually happening.
All right, the way harassment is actually defined, and it's the one that we like to use as well, is it has to be deliberate and continual and focused in a place where the person that is being harassed is expected reasonably to see it. So someone who leaves a comment on your journal where they say they don't agree with what you're saying, that's not harassment. Someone who leaves a comment in your journal where they flat out insult you is not harassment. Someone leaving comments in several journals where they do nothing but insult you, that is harassment. As long as there's nothing constructive at all in the post. And again, if you block it and they make another account to talk to you, that is definitely harassment. And one of the things that I was dealing with a couple months ago, I guess, there was someone who came to me and said that there was someone who had stalked her onto Rooster Teeth from other sites. Was there anything I could do? And I spent a good 3 weeks accepting her messages saying, he's using this account now, and deleting the account. That's cut and dry. That is harassment. But individual messages, or the one or two, isn't really harassment. It's unkind, but not actually harassment. It has to be continual and focused.
Well, I think, Damana, you make a really good distinction there, especially, with, people who put up a lot of their own content, Jen notwithstanding, we're watching her play FTL right now, and apparently I'm the only one with low health.
Sorry
but,
about
the
that.
difference between constructive criticism and actual harassment, that maybe again everyone on the Rooster Teeth's website, we're not the next coming of Hemingway. We're not going to be maybe the most articulate of people when they're trying to make a legitimate constructive criticism of a project, but differentiating between kind of the systematic harassment over and over again versus your stream was kind of boring. I don't like the way you draw eyeballs in your comic strip. That's a very important distinction. And again, it gets back to a lot of the recent leaving. A lot of the recent people leaving in the community don't leave us a lot of clues, or was it like legitimate, harassment, or was it just criticism taken in bad light?
Yeah, and that sort of has to be a judgment call at the time, unfortunately.
Yeah. So, I got stuff happening. Oh, go ahead. I sound like somebody was going to talk. Maybe not.
I think we may have gotten Grady.
Oh, that would be nice.
And he should be coming in right now.
I see some dots moving in a very suspicious manner.
Yeah, that's probably Grady.
I feel unsettled by them.
Hey!
Hey there, can you hear me?
Yes!
Awesome.
Glad you could join us.
I am glad I could join you as well.
That sounded incredibly convincing. Say it again.
I'm glad I could join you as well.
Excellent.
Well, Grady, we've already introduced ourselves. Why don't you give everyone a brief introduction? And
let me shut the door here so I'm not disturbed or disturbing anyone else. Okay, we're good. So what am I doing?
You're introducing yourself to the wonderful people who've tuned in to hear us talk in our little symposium here.
Introducing myself. Well, my name is Grady Bailey. I go by GB330033 on the RT site. I've been around a long time, though I only became active as a community member in 2011. I just recently passed, like, my profile just turned 10 a few days ago, so I've been around a long time.
Thank you, Mr. Dinosaur.
Oh, and I also do that little side quest thing.
Oh yeah, that thing. No one knows what that is. Shut up. That was funny to say, ironically, on a stream about being jerks to each other. Okay, so where do we kind of where do you guys kind of want to go from here? I mean, we've talked about, just what harassment is, and it's gotta be persistent, and it's not just a one-off message. Like, I get one-off messages, but I have found that some well-phrased snark shuts that up pretty quick, and so that it's not a continuing problem for me. So I would say I am harassed, but I get messages every once in a while, and I guess maybe that's another point too, is that this is the internet. There are jerks on the internet. It's just the way it goes, and people are going to be mean and kind of jerky because they can be, because they are just a name and a face on a profile, and they feel like they can do that. And so I feel like if you're creating content to be seen, because no one creates content to keep it hidden. If you are putting yourself in a position where your stuff is going to be seen, you have to be ready for that.
Right, and because Grady, before you joined, we were talking about differentiating between harassment and criticism, and Damano gave a very good definition of harassment being a continual thing, not a one-off message. But even another kind of nuance that really not only just exists in Rooster Teeth but on the internet as a whole is that you interact with a lot of people, and I recognize a lot of names in the feed right now, but I've haven't met most of them. Some of them I've met at RTX, but we kind of have an established relation. We kind of know each other, and we'll razz one another, and in a very joking and non-malicious way. But then that sort of becomes the default way to interact with other people who may not really appreciate it that kind of way. So then you have people who think it's legitimate harassment, and but where there's no malicious intent. But all the same, I think what it really comes down to, viewers at home, is just when in doubt, just talk to an admin, talk to a mod, and they'll be able to clear it up as best as possible. If you're unsure, talk to a mod.
So, I don't know. I while I like the definition that we're working with here, that harassment has to be continued, I don't think that's necessarily true. It is entirely possible to harass and bully someone with a single message. I mean, it's not ongoing, but that I don't want to. I don't want to discount the possibility that happens. You know, I mean, I think it's just as important to report those kind of instances. If you get if you get some sort of harassing, threatening message, even if it's just a one-off thing, that's not something just to shy away from. That's kind of the cause of really as our whole culture. That's kind of a real negative thing, because we're conditioning ourselves to become desensitized to that thing or that type of thing, and it's not good. Do you understand where I'm coming from?
Yeah, I definitely.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Devano. Go for it.
Right. The point behind the definition that I offered wasn't to try to minimize instances of single messages. It was more one of picking your battles. If you get one message from someone that says, "You're fat and ugly and you should leave," that's definitely insulting, and the person is very obviously being a huge dick. But it's one message. It's not really harassment. It's just a single attack, and you can ignore it. You can block the person, and it stops. If we get a lot of messages from people saying this person said something mean to me, those are the ones that we tend not to give a lot of attention to, because it's the internet. People will say mean things. The ones that we want to hear about are, this person said something mean to me in a comment on every journal I've posted for the past 3 years, and they did it all today. That's the sort of stuff that we really want to pay attention to, because that's the stuff that it's obvious it's not one person just being a dick once and going away. That is, we know it's going to be ongoing. We know it's something we have to deal with.
You see, but that's a problem, because just because if I were to get a nasty gram from someone, what you're saying is, if it was just one message, I shouldn't do anything about it. I should just block them. There exists the possibility that that person is continuing to send out one-off messages to people, and they're going unreported. That's a systemic problem. I can understand if maybe you're saying that from the mindset of there's not the capacity to handle complaints about one-off messages. Then the capacity needs to be increased. That you can't tolerate those things. I mean, you cannot sit idly by and say, oh, it's the internet, people are going to say nasty things. That was a great point that Mary brought up in some of our conversations. Yeah, it's the internet, people are going to say nasty things. Fuck that, we're better than that. I mean, we are not just the internet. We are a community, and we are a community from the internet, but we also exist in real life. We are all real people. We get together on regular occasions. I mean, you don't put up with that stuff offline or online.
I think it kind of depends on what kind of message you're getting. I mean, if somebody's going, "I think you're stupid," I think that is kind of crap that would happen. Like if you're walking around Target and you bump into someone's cart on accident, they look at you, go, and they call you a bitch or whatever. You don't go. You just go, "Oh well, screw you too," and then you go your separate ways. Like at one point, I had to get an admin involved because I got a message that was what I will call very graphic in nature. And that's the kind of shit. It's like, if it's the kind of stuff that if it happened in real life, if somebody walked up to my face and did that, if that would actually cause an issue where whoever the local authority was, in this case we've got mods and admins, if we're talking about managers, if we're talking about police or something, if that would get that kind of person involved, then that's something that needs to be brought up. But if somebody's just like, "I think your voice is stupid," and they say it once and that's the last thing, and it's like, and blocking them makes that totally go away, I know it's one of those things to be like, oh, we are better than that, but it's one of those things that we are not the only group that is dealing with this. This is not the only community that has people like this, and it gets to a point where that's how some people, that's their icebreaker, and they say something dumb and they try to get a rise out of you. If you don't give them that, then they go away. And I think I agree with Damano in the idea that you have to pick your battles. Is you can't go after everyone who's saying things that aren't nice, that are them being jerks. If they're being persistent jerks, or if they're like a really large jerk all in one go, like that graphic message that I got the one time about terrible things. I think when you've got something like that that is extreme, that deserves attention on the first go around. But I think somebody who's just, you know, sad and alone and going, I think your video's stupid, is not really something I think that I don't think it's anyone's time well spent.
Yeah, as well, there's a difference between a message that says, you're fat and ugly and stupid, and a message that says, you should kill yourself tonight. Like, the second one is significantly more serious. That one, if you get that as a one-off message, let us know about that one. But one that's just obviously childish, like, that's block and move on for that one. We do, in a lot of ways, trust the community to self-moderate. So that's why one of the things I'm saying is if it's one message, you know, odds are you can deal with that on your own. If it's many messages, that's what we want to get involved with. Because, again, we all grew up with the community. We genuinely want to make sure that everyone can be comfortable in it. But we also trust you to do what you can to do that for yourself when you can.
So, Damana, just to kind of summarize that really good point, if it's beyond the user's bandwidth, and of course the user's bandwidth is subject to each user, just reach out and, you know, let you guys try to sort it out if it's warranted or not. That am I pretty close to the base there?
Yeah. If it's something that you think, if you're not sure, come to us.
Yeah.
If you recognize it's just someone saying one thing and this isn't going to continue, deal with that yourself. And again, it's choose your battles.
Yeah. Well, I would. A.H. Abel in the stream had a good question about a couple minutes ago. Do you guys use IP bans at all to stop people from, if someone's going to create multiple accounts, at least kind of banning the IP if it's like a repeat offender or anything to that sort?
We can and we do.
All right. Very cool.
We actually use that mostly for spam bots. We have a button in the back end that says ban hammer, which all at once it freezes the account and deletes everything they've ever posted anywhere and bans their IP address permanently.
So the ban hammer is not a joke. That's an actual thing.
It's an actual thing, and it is strong.
That is so awesome. That makes me so happy to know that's a thing.
So I'm sorry for being quiet for just a second. I'm pulling up some of the notes that I've taken over the last couple days and just thinking about all of this. And I mean, I will say, quite honestly, I'm still not entirely comfortable with the idea that that someone has to, like, that people are being encouraged to, you know what, if you get a shitty message, just grow up and deal with it.
No, we're not saying grow up. We're not saying grow up and deal with it. What we're saying is, if you can handle it, do that.
Well, okay, so that's a bit of a different language than was just used a couple minutes ago. So I'd like to stress, like, anytime, if, like, no matter how insignificant the conversation might be or the message might be, if you feel that it's a problem, you should talk to someone.
Yeah, if it's more than just some childish insult and you think it might be something that could become serious, then yes, come to us.
Well, okay, so I mean, there we go again, making a qualification of if it's more than a childish insult. I mean, what, you know, like I get that those of us who are here talking are probably all have the same idea of what we're talking about as childish insults versus something real and something that's a major problem. But not everyone has that. Not everyone has that breakdown or that, you know, way of mentally filtering things out. I don't know. I don't want I hate the thought that someone could ever have heard this conversation and in the future get any sort of message and go, no, I'm not going to say something because it's they have bigger things to handle. Any inkling of that someone has of, well, man, maybe I should report them, should be reported, no matter how insignificant.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think
again, what I said before was, if you're not sure, report it.
Yeah, I think where the hang-up was, Grady was pointing out, was just the qualifier about what something childish is. Because, I mean, of the people who are currently on the stream and able to hear our voices, we're all, adults. We are biologically adults. There are some fans of Rooster Teeth who are of the younger persuasion, and where something might seem childish to us seems very important to them because they are, in fact, a child.
Yeah.
So I think that's where the hang-up was. I think the message doesn't change, though, is that if it makes you feel uncomfortable, report it regardless. But
there you go. I think that.
The hang-up was the childish qualifier. But
yeah, I mean that's like you put it really well there. If anything makes you feel uncomfortable, it should be reported. And so something that I brought up in kind of the notes I was taking is the harassment of any kind, and the things that are associated with it. Those crimes in the, for lack of a better term, the real world are so underreported. I mean, you look at the statistics on those things, and there's again, for lack of a better term, it's criminal how underreported they are, and it's because of what those things are. I mean, when someone is attacking you, attacking your character, attacking your actions, just any kind of thing, it's chipping away at you, it's chipping away at your confidence, chipping away at who you are, and it makes you feel powerless, and it makes you feel like you can't do anything about it, and you can't maybe you can't go to someone. So that's one of the things that I'd ask for everyone listening, everyone who will listen, as a community, we should be there for each other in any of these sorts of situations. And if you see something that might be a problem, you go report it. Don't just assume that someone else who got a shitty comment on their journal is going to go and report it. Make sure something is said. It's the whole it kind of came about with after 9/11 and things like that, that if you see something, say something mantra. But we need to have that to make sure that we're looking out for each other, because just because I know that I'm going to report something if something comes up, I don't know that the user next to me is going to. They might not be able to. They might not feel comfortable doing that. And so we need to look out for each other and make sure we have each other's backs, because we are a community, and hurting one of us hurts all of us.
Yeah, one thing that I cannot stress enough in this conversation is the biggest frustration that the admins and the moderators have about this is we generally don't find out that anything is going on until it's over. Like, none of us had any idea that anything was going on with a couple recent incidents until we saw the journals that vaguely referred to it. We cannot deal with something if we don't know what's going on.
Yeah, that's a huge thing.
Yeah, and that's something I wanted to make sure got stressed too. Is I definitely saw the frustration coming from you guys, that you're like, what is anybody talking about? And there are people who are saying, oh, the mods and admins should be on top of this. You guys are everywhere, but you are not all seeing, and you cannot address something that you don't know about. You're not psychic, so I have seen plenty of people and talked to people who have said, oh, I had this issue and I've had that issue and nobody did anything. And I asked them, like, did you block the user and did you report it? And they were like, well, I blocked them, but that didn't really seem to do anything because I hang out in the chat rooms and they're there all the time. And I didn't report it because I didn't think anybody could really do anything. So So I say that, we talked about it at the beginning, I'm going to say it again. You have to tell somebody. They're not going to just know. Their magic little, admin and mod sense is not going to start tingling, and they're going to know that they have to contact you. Somebody has to say something to them if you expect something to be done. Those vague journals that say, "Oh, I'm being harassed," or "Oh, these people are being harassed," and that helps no one. That helps no one, and you are likely not the only person that is being harassed by that person. Usually, if they're a jerk to one person, they're a jerk to a lot of people. And so if none of you are saying anything, they just get to keep going and doing it. Somebody has to step up and say, I'm going to report this. I'm going to take the screenshot or send somebody to a link or whatever is going on and say, this is happening to me. I believe there are other users. And then you can tell if you know other people that are being harassed by that person. Because I've had a situation like that where I know I was not the only person having an issue with a particular user. It's like I said something, and it's easier for someone else maybe then to go and say something if they know that you've already got their back.
Yeah, right
Absolutely.
now, actually, we're dealing with something, the mods and admins, that we found out about an hour and a half ago, and it's something that first happened several months ago. And we only found out about it because one of the people involved said, now that everyone's talking about harassment anyway, I may as well mention this in a journal.
Oh, holy crap.
And if we'd been told about that at the time, we could have handled it immediately, but we didn't find out about this particular instance until now, several months afterwards. If it's a problem, we have to know about it in order to do something about it. And when we do know about it, we will act as quickly as we believe we can.
So, Damano, I want to just build off something that was said in the stream. It's coming from Kasonic, and I hope I'm saying your name right. But they were mentioning about how communities like RoosterTeeth have admins and mods and immediately reachable and able to help. And that's been pretty much if there's any theme today, it's talk to a mod, talk to an admin. But I'm all about reducing as many barriers to getting help as possible. We talked earlier about putting up the code of conduct, which you guys are talking about, and that's awesome, and we're really excited about that. And I know Grady wasn't here to hear that, but I'm sure he'll be very excited to hear that too.
Yeah, actually, once you're finished your thought, I'd like to get a recap of that. That'd be awesome.
Sure, but just as another step to remove any sort of barriers that might be there, whether small or big, for people to reach out to you guys. Other sites that have either social media or kind of communities like Rooster Teeth. There's like a report button, or that will, if you click on it, will issue a ticket to admins or mods. And I'm guessing you guys have a private forum somewhere invisible to the majority of people. Do you think instead of having you guys listed under cast and crew, because in all honesty, you guys are talking about how you are not paid people, you're volunteers that are doing this. So thinking about the cast and crew tab, I wouldn't necessarily make the jump in logic that, the admins and mods would be listed there. Do you think there should be a button that would trigger a ticket for all mods and admins to see, so whoever's online at the time or whoever sees it first could handle it? So instead of, John Smith 321 goes to the site Hobby says he's an admin, I'll send him a message and wait and wait and wait.
Yeah, that's something that first of all, I agree with you that the info tab item should be changed from cast and crew to site staff or something like that. I suggested that ages ago when it first showed up, and it didn't happen, obviously. For a button to make it easier to report incidents, that's something that has been thrown back and forth every once in a while in the moderator forum and the admin forum. But for whatever reason, it hasn't happened yet. Now, because we lack that functionality, we have threads like report an image, where if you spot an image that's not safe for work, that shouldn't be on the site, you put a link in there, and all of the admins have that. Someone's going through a wind tunnel. All of the admins have that thread on watch, and that's more reliable than posting it in a message to just one of us, because the odds of getting one of us from any of us at any given time are better than the odds of getting one of us from a private message.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But along with the code of conduct stuff that we are discussing, I do think it is reasonable to raise that as an issue for further discussion up there as well, and I will do that after this call is over.
Well, we definitely appreciate that, and we're just thinking, you know, for those of us who've been on the site for a while, we kind of know the site forwards and backwards. We know everywhere to look for certain things, but and where to us it may seem like a pretty easy jump in logic to get from point A to point B, to someone who's new or who's been living in a place like YouTube comments or, Facebook groups, and they come here and, it seems similar but very different in terms of how things operate on the site. Just removing any sort of barrier to getting help, I think would go a long way. I mean, just looking through the chat, I've seen a few people earnestly ask about block buttons and other things that we were talking about earlier. So, I mean, it's if one person has a question about it, with 1.7 million registered users, there's definitely more people out there who I'm going to make a rash assumption and assume don't know that either. So.
Yeah, one of the problems with the profile specifically is there is a lot of information on there. And it's a lot of stuff to fit on the page somewhere. And some of it is not in a place that is entirely intuitive for a user. It's obviously intuitive for the people who designed it, but given that there are a number of people who don't know that the block feature even exists, it's fairly evident that it would be beneficial to make that more clear.
Yeah, that's actually a conversation that's happening right now in the chat. There is about the block button, and I honestly like I said when I first got on, I registered for the site 10 years ago, and I've been active for 3 years now, and I knew that there had to be some sort of block feature, but I didn't know where it was until just the other day. I actually looked for it and I found it. And it's so unintuitive that there's no way to block a user from the messaging system.
When you block a user, essentially you each disappear from the site as far as the other is concerned. So if I were to block you, Grady, I would not be able to see your profile. I would not be able to see anything you say in a forum thread or in a journal comment or in an image. I would not see any alert for any content of yours. If I have you on watch, your stuff will still not appear in my feed. And the exact reverse will also be true. Everything I said about you would also apply about me for you. Mm-hmm. And that includes also sending private messages back and forth. It's a very powerful tool, which is one of the reasons that we think it's a good step to take.
Yeah, and it's absolutely, great that it exists. But I guess what I'm saying is, I thought it was so weird that there's no way. So let's say you sent me a nastygram via private message. I can't get that, see it, and block you when I'm reading the message. I have to take.
Oh, you mean there's no way to do it from within the messaging? Okay.
Right. I mean, that, I feel like if that is because messages are private, and I assume, for the most part, you can send to anyone a message. It's cases that I feel like there should be a block button of, this guy, get out of here. That, I don't know. It was just one of those things when I was hunting around, I found really weird. But, that's one of the things when you've got a site that's been around as long as this one has, and has gone through so relatively few changes. I guess it's one of those things that just hasn't quite evolved.
Damano, to build off of what Grady said, Greeky Fried Rice, or Jackie, as some of us know her, a good friend of hers is a community manager at BioWare, and even though she couldn't be here tonight, she emailed with the community manager and sent the email to us, so for all of us to see. Right. And the community manager at BioWare, one of the community managers at BioWare, is is familiar with Rooster Teeth and their content and is a registered user. And when asking them a few questions about, just kind of user interface and how you guys do things over at BioWare, one of the comments they had made, and I'm going to pull up the email right now so I don't misquote it, was that there should be something clearly on the site to explain how to report such behavior, because I don't see anything. I've never really dealt with harassment on the site personally, though. I don't really frequent the forums, but when I went there, I was able to dig up the mods. I couldn't find admins, and there's no button to report abuse. So, and that's coming from a community manager in BioWare who has a limited knowledge of how our website works, but obviously a lot of knowledge on how to work within a community. So I just thought I'd put that in there, talking to kind of support Grady and the intuitiveness of the current build of the website right now.
All right, yeah. Can you forward that to me?
I can certainly do that.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm making notes for things to bring up in the mod and admin forums as we discuss this.
Awesome.
Yeah, that was a really interesting email to read to get that outside perspective, and also to see how, because there's a difference between community websites and social media, and the Rooster Teeth site exists in this interesting place that's a hybrid of the two, because you have the forums, which are built more like your traditional community websites for any game or anything like that. But you also have the journals and things like that, which are more akin to Facebook posts and Twitter. And earlier in the chat, I saw someone was talking about how it's like the rise of unmoderated social media seems to have kind of given rise to some internet douchebaggery. And I don't know. I just thought it was interesting to see things from the perspective of an outsider who has experience with community management on a strictly community forum type site.
Yeah, and as well, I agree that it's important for the site to be intuitive to people who haven't used it before. And there are some parts of it that aren't, that I think isn't really in dispute. Hopefully, it's been a while since I looked at it, but hopefully the next version of the site will address some of these. The last version I saw, it has been significantly changed, so I don't know whether the new site actually addresses some specific ones that I have in mind or not.
Yeah, I actually, I assume I don't know, maybe it's a bad assumption, but whenever the beta was hopping around for the new version of the site, I popped over to that today just to see if anything had changed, and it hasn't changed in quite some time. But I'm hopeful that we're gonna maybe get some updates on that in the near future, and some of these comments will be addressed, because that's one of the main things is we can sit here as community members and even a community admin, community forum mods, anything. We can sit here and talk about this all we want, but the fact of the matter is, for a lot of people, they don't care unless it comes from Rooster Teeth themselves. And so that's I'd like to know, like, going back to the community code of conduct, what was said in here before I got here about that? Because that's something I'd really like to push for.
All right. The very, very short version is I talked briefly about the terms of use and how they specifically forbid harassment, and that's literally what admins are here for, is to deal with that. And James asked, given that the terms of use is fairly out of the way, is there a plan to bring anything in that's more obvious and easier to get to and more human readable? And I told him that yes, we actually, not only do we agree with that, we're discussing how to do it right now in the mod forum.
Okay, cool. Yeah. That's something I think is would be really awesome to have very visible is there's been a big rise recently in for lack of a better term, real world events, conventions, PAX, RTX, Comic-Con, all of those things, of the clear anti-harassment policy. And, I think in very plain terms, those things are spelled out. And I think it'd be great to have something like that, not a terms of service, terms of use type legalese, which you have to have that to protect yourselves as a company. You have to have those sorts of things laid out, but something very human readable, kind of the equivalent of the rules of PAX, the rules of RTX, don't be a dick, blah, 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 blah. As visible as under the members drop down or somewhere like that, where it's not a forum post that people have to go dig for. It's very clearly an official page. It's not someone's journal. It doesn't have a username tied to it, so it's not like it'll ever become irrelevant, but it's something permanent. It's something that is there as a part of the site for everyone to see at any point and reference as well. And then it has, by calling it like a community code of conduct, you're giving it the backing of the community, because it's clearly something that those of us who are here want. And if it's added with the support of the community, that's a big thing. And then it'll have to be added by RT, by someone on staff, and that gives it that backing as well, which I think is really, really important to have.
Yeah, and again, the thing we're discussing is the best way to do it so that it is easily accessible and very obvious that it is really part of what we believe the site is supposed to be. So basically everything you just said.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm really happy that conversation is happening. I'm digging through the notes that I took. And
Grady, while you're digging through the notes, I wanted to hit a few comments from the stream. Calamity Jane or Lori thought it would be a neat feature to have a report, post, or message button that would instantly screenshot it and then archive it for mods and admins. So one, it wouldn't require the user to get on it immediately, and also it would prevent, say, the poster from deleting it. And I don't know if it's possible to back up, but it was just, again, I'm all about the removing barriers, and if it takes an instant screenshot and it archives it for you guys already, just cutting down on a lot of legwork. And also, I'm sorry whoever asked it, because I can't find it. Oh, that's Flying Midget. Does deleting a sent message delete it to all senders?
Just from you.
Just from you. Okay.
So really, there's no point in the... I've always thought it was kind of silly that there's a delete message button, because it just removes it from your view. So you can't send something and then go, oh no, I didn't want to do that, I don't want there to be evidence of this, whatever. You can click delete all you want. The person you sent it to is still going to see it.
What it does is it cleans up your own mailbox.
Right.
Yeah, it's just like an email.
Right, but there are people who try to use it not for... They look at it like it's a delete post button, like it will suddenly disappear and no one will see it. And that's not what happens. That's not what happens.
Yeah, that's true. I'm trying to find if there's anything that we didn't really cover. Oh, that's something. And Damano, since you're here, it'd be it's great that you're here. So to kind of answer this question with the way that the for lack of a better term, the site staff or the admins and mods and stuff, the way that they're broken down is, you have the site admins and then you have the forum mods. But is the term forum mod still really appropriate? Are moderators isolated to individual forums, or do they have broader abilities? Because, something we mentioned earlier is you've got this, the RoosterTeeth site is this hybrid community social media type site. You've got the community forums and things like that, which have a very clear moderator structure. The forums have different moderators and things like that. But then you have what's kind of the Wild West of journals and comments and images and links and all of those things. Who watches that portion of the site?
All right, the forum moderators take care of the forums. Some of them are restricted to individual forums, and some of them have access to every forum, the same abilities. And forum moderator is actually very accurate there. They only have the ability to do things within a forum. When it comes to managing the users, that's where the site admins have purview. We also can do things in the forums, but we tend to let the moderators do that as much as possible because that's basically their area. When it comes to the users on the site, for that to have any action taken has to come from an admin or a casting crew member.
So a really shitty comment on my latest journal post has to be handled by a site admin and not a forum mod.
That's right.
Okay, that's good to know. And then it's been a long time since I've been in there. The chat side of things, I believe chat rooms have their own mods. Are there universal moderators for the chat feature, or do site admin powers and forum mod powers extend over there? How does that all work?
I don't know anything about the chat. I don't go there, but I know we have some other moderators and site admins in the Twitch chat. So if anyone who's there and knows more about that specifically wants to mention that, I will gladly read off your comment as if it's gospel. And also, this seems like a reasonable time to reiterate, moderators and site admins are volunteers, not employees. So anything I say, while it might be the opinion of the site staff, the moderators, and the site admins, it should not be taken as an official position of Rooster Teeth Productions. We're not on the salary. We're not getting paid. We cannot speak for the company. We speak only for ourselves.
You're not even an unpaid intern or anything like that. You are just a volunteer. I mean, I say just a volunteer, but that, volunteers are actually super important. I volunteer.
It's okay. I say just a volunteer also.
Let's see. Did we get a... Chat mods are specific to individual chats.
Oh, BioHray is saying mods can take care of journals as well, and he is a forum moderator.
Oh, well, la-da-da. There we go.
There we go.
So actually, I'd love to call attention to the comment there by Hellbits39. Shouldn't this be written down on the site? I personally think that is very important, and that's something that should, this chain of authority, who can do what, who has lordship over what. I think it's important for that to be visible so that people know, circling back, who to report things to. Because while it seems, again, assuming all of us are adults, but we're not everyone on the site is an adult. It seems intuitive to report to the local forum admin or Escalate or whatever. I think it'd be important to actually lay that out so that people can find it, kind of right the way we want to make a code of conduct and make that visible. I think showing the moderation of the site and having that visible, who does what, is also really important to have.
Well, the thing about that is we talk to each other behind the scenes as well. So if you report something to someone who can't deal with it themselves, they will bring it up the line to the rest of us. And then someone who can deal with it will deal with it. So even if you're talking to someone who can't deal with something themselves, it's still worth giving it to them because it will find its way into the right hands.
Yeah, well, and that is really good to know. I was just thinking to make life easier for the mods and admins, having something clearly delineating who handles what would make your life easier, because we could as a community, make sure that things get to the right people and not have the sorting on your end.
Well, I'll certainly bring it up for discussion in the forum afterwards. See what the general consensus is in there.
Yeah, and I mean, I having conversations like that is always good.
Yeah.
I do want to. So.
Grady, I hate to cut you off, but I'm keeping an ever watchful eye on the thread, so you guys don't have to. Zapti says, what about new people? They may go to an admin or a mod who isn't active, and the problem never gets reported. We kind of touched upon it a little earlier in the stream about having just a general report button that would trigger a ticket in either the forum or some way to reach out to all the active people. But I mean, for the time being, because that sounds like I'm not a computer programmer, or at least a web programmer in that sense, that would take time to do. Do you think it would be beneficial that the cast and crew page would only have the active admins and mods? Sometimes you guys have to go away from the site for a while. Other priorities are there. I understand that, and I'm not saying that we remove the rights that the mods and admins have if they're not active, but just not have their profile prominently displayed under cast and crew, so it cuts down on a errant message going somewhere where it may not be seen right away.
Making sure that only people who are actually active receive messages is one of the things that we're discussing right now, actually.
Great.
It's part of the ongoing dialogue, I'll say, in the moderator forum.
And so there's a important note coming from the chat there. When you look at the staff page, whoever's online and active, they're always at the front of the list. So whoever's at the front there, they're the ones who are online and active, and they're your best place to report any kind of nastiness that you've seen or experienced. It's best to get in touch with someone at the front of the line rather than the back of the line.
Right, and I'm just thinking, for someone who's new, and I like to use Hobby as an example a lot because we go way back. Someone jumps on, someone new to the page, they come on, they're a big Star Wars fan, and they look, oh, here's a list of all the admins. They don't necessarily know that the front of the far left is the most active. Hey, look, here's a guy with an obscure Star Wars reference. I like that. I'm going to send him a message because I can relate to that. And then it's, who knows when Hobby will be on next. So I think, it's good to know, like, maybe have listen, because I could be just mistaken, but didn't there used to be a feature way back when that if your cursor hovered over a profile picture, it would say online or offline? Or am I just making that up?
It used to be that there was a square in the corner when they were online, and when you hovered over it used to be that everyone's avatar got a border when you hovered over it, and someone who was online at the time, their border would be green, and someone who was not, their border would be gray. There used to be, there have been a couple of various ways to tell whether someone was online at the time, and they're gone now.
Yeah, that's something I could see is having a lot of overhead on the back end of keeping track of all of that, and just from a load perspective on the server, having those things in all the different places where you could see users, I could see the potential for problems there. So I guess it makes sense why they went away, and also the fact that fewer people are using a mouse now and hovering over things. Rethinking that might be a good idea. Some way to bring.
I kind of suspect that the online notification was removed as a casualty of the mod point to thumb revamp. Because I suspect there were some features that were removed to lighten the load on the server because everyone loves mod points. So they're trying to keep the mod points and removing other things that might be less important. and then when the mod points got replaced by the thumbs, those features didn't get put back in. I can't say for sure if that's the case. It's just something that I think makes sense if it happened that way.
Yeah, that makes total sense.
Jen, I know that Grady and I have been monopolizing a lot of the conversation. Is there anything you wanted to say or to apologize to Grady and Mary for killing them in FTL?
Yeah, I'd never claimed to be good at this. We're all about to die. It's okay. So,
As long as I die last, it's okay.
then you should not look at the stream.
Oh.
Right now it's me, James, and Noobs. We're all that's left. And the ship is about to explode. And there's fire everywhere. Oh my god, there's fire everywhere.
Oh no.
Yeah, this is not going to be good.
As long as James gets to the escape pod, because he has to tell the story.
Yeah. So, but no, I've been keeping quiet because I think you guys have been covering it really well. It's like everyone's kind of got their part of the issue that they are more passionate about and have more to say and have more insight on, and have different viewpoints on it. So I don't know about the three of you, especially I'm going to guess Demano, since you do have, power on the site, you probably don't yourself get a lot of harassment either. I don't think anyone would dare yell at the person who's holding the reins. But like I've been on the receiving end and some stuff, and so I get really defensive about people who claim harassment when it's just they don't love everything that you do. And I get irritated as knowing that this is actually an issue that does really come up for people. Just making sure that there is that distinction where it's like someone not being overtly nice to you and not supporting everything, actively supporting the things you do, that is not harassment, and a lack of support is not something to kind of, for lack of a better phrase, to get your panties in a twist about. And that is something else that I have seen while actual harassment has been on the rise. That has also come up as well. And so that's something that was a point that I really wanted to make sure that was like, if you are being harassed, you need to say something, because nobody can help you if you don't say something. But do not, you can't go reporting everything where it's like, oh, they said they didn't like my art, or they said my voice was annoying this one time, or I got a message that says, I hope you stop making videos, and like, and anything that I can make go away with a block button. That's, and you can, and that was a conversation we had earlier about at what point you do report and what point you don't, and everyone has their own personal threshold. I think that's the other part of, making the line between what is, I don't remember the exact phrase we're using, like, a childlike kind of thing where it's like, oh, you're a poopy head. Like, for me, there's probably a higher line, because I don't want to say I am used to it, but I very much can kind of hold my own, so I'm willing to deal with a lot more on my side before I go to someone else than someone else might be able to, and whatnot. And I get that there's a different line kind of for everybody. But to see people who are like, oh, this person didn't like my video, they're harassing me. It's like, no, they're not. They just don't like your stuff. And that is not something that you need to report. That is not something you need to make a big deal about or make vague journals about. And that's not helping anybody. And it's making something seem a lot worse than it is. And you end up with a massive boiling over of emotions for no reason. And that's an issue that I have related to this.
Well, I really like what was said earlier on the subject of everyone has a different threshold of what they can tolerate. I really liked what was said, that if it makes you feel uncomfortable, you might as well say something. Like, that's the point at which you should report it to someone, no matter if you think that they don't think it will be significant. If you feel uncomfortable, report it. And that's what it boils down to. I mean, I know that, and it's funny that you were talking about, oh, they don't like me, whatever. Quite frankly, there are some people on the site, people in the community that I cannot stand.
Yeah.
That I don't like one bit. But you know what? That's like, there are people in your everyday life that you don't like, and you just don't talk to those people. You just ignore those people. Yeah. But what you don't do is threaten them and send them nasty grams and just harass them. You don't do that because, generally that could land you in a bit of trouble with the law or something like that in the real world. And we need to make sure that that's the same case online, is that we don't tolerate that. And you can not like someone all you want, but you can't harass them.
Yeah, and I think this kind of boils down to a statement that nobody really likes. The internet is not special. The internet is just another way to interact with people the same way you do in real life, and it just lets you talk to more people than you normally would be able to run into. Like, I probably wouldn't normally get to talk to a bunch of people from Ireland. That's a thing I get to do now because of the internet. But it is not a special place. The crap that is not acceptable in a person-to-person interaction is still not acceptable on the internet. And things that are really, that you're not a special snowflake. Everyone has their talents, but you do not get special exceptions because you are on the internet, and all of a sudden everyone should be protecting you from the meanies. That's not it either. The internet is not a special place. What is acceptable in one place is what is acceptable somewhere else. And if you try to look at it, be like, well, I should. The anonymity not only means that I can say things without, having my name tied to it. It also means that I should automatically have a shield, be able to pull up a shield around me because I'm here. That's a distinction that people don't seem to like to make either. Well,
and that actually brings up an interesting point. You were talking about how what's acceptable or what's not acceptable in real life isn't acceptable on the internet either. And we need, I think, and it's especially true for some younger community members. And we've seen it. I know all of us here have seen it in the context of RTX. What's seen in and what's acceptable in videos that RT produces, that's not necessarily acceptable on the internet or in real life.
Yeah.
Those are, entertainment. Just because you see someone do something in a TV show doesn't mean it's something you can do in real life. The same goes for videos that RT produces. Just because you see the guys at Achievement Hunter doing what, God knows what in the latest video they put out, that doesn't mean that that's something that you can now do in real life or on the internet.
And I want to tangent off that a little bit because I was in a unique position at RTX this year that I was one of the PAs. And that was actually a conversation I had with some staff while we were waiting for a panel to start, was about the fact that they interact that way with each other partly for the entertainment and partly because they are friends. They are friends, they know where each other's lines are, and they can do that because that is a well-established thing for them. For people even in the community who would come up to them and be like, hey, Gavin, you're a fucking piece of shit. And they would say that stuff because that's what gets said in the videos amongst the group of friends. It's not okay for a random person to say that because you're not part of that group. You don't have that relationship that says that is an okay thing to say. And the same thing happens here. They're doing that in those videos because they have that relationship with each other. You do not have an inherent relationship with everyone on Rooster Teeth, and you can't just go around calling people, a piece of shit because it's funny. Because it's not funny. You don't have that relationship with somebody to where you both understand that it is just a joke. And you can't turn around and claim that it's just a joke because that's what it is in the other videos that you watch.
Right. And Jen, I think to build off your point, Neil Peart, who is the drummer of Rush, and everyone should know who he is. He during an interview he said something really profound on such a subject, and he said familiarity of a stranger does not make long lost friends. And I think, a lot of people who consume a lot of Rooster Teeth's material, the podcast, the videos, they get insight into these people's lives, and they think that, you could be, they're like long lost friends or friends that they never had because they know so much about these people. But then when you actually meet them in person at RTX, that doesn't go over so well because it's not reciprocated on the other side. They know nothing about you, or very little to nothing, or if you have a rapport with them on the site. So it is a unique place to be, community wise, and what's acceptable for one person is not acceptable for the next person, and so on. And it comes down to good judgment and what makes you comfortable.
Yeah, I remember a couple of years ago, when the wet bread was first revealed.
Oh God, the wet
There were a
bread.
bunch of people saying, I'm gonna show Gavin wet bread to get his reaction. To the point that Rooster Teeth actually put out a release that said anyone who brings wet bread to RTX will be ejected from the event. Because it's not okay to do that sort of thing. You don't know Gavin the way that they do.
Yeah, well, and I mean, I know, I specifically remember Jack addressing that kind of situation before, where he would get messages like, "Hey, at RTX, I'm going to come up and I'm going to slap you in the face," and he's like, "No, you're not. That's not how this works. That's I feel like it's like that. Oh, was that a Geico commercial with the old lady? That's not how this works. That's not how any of this works."
Oh yeah, that is the Geico
Yeah.
commercial. I forgot about that.
And that's like you can't act the way that you can't act with strangers the way you see two good friends act. It doesn't work that way. Respect everyone as regardless of what you see them doing in videos on the internet, or regardless of what you see other people saying to them, or how you see other people talking to them. Just respect each other. Don't be a dick.
Yes, and that is the almighty thing. The general rule is just don't be a dick. You can't even say, oh, treat others the way you would want to be treated. That doesn't work anymore. Just don't be a dick. If it's not something... And I don't even like saying this anymore because some people have interesting relationships with their parents. I used to say, it's like, if you wouldn't want your mom to watch you do this, don't do it. Or if you wouldn't walk up to a stranger and do that. You're walking down the aisle at Walmart. You're like, I'm going to slap that person in the face, or I'm going to shove wet bread in their face. It's like, no one does that. And you might think you have a relationship with somebody because you have a shared interest, or you watch their videos so you feel like you know them, but you don't have that. And that's crossing a massive line.
And I think it also, and this is another point that I wanted to get to eventually, and I'm going to jump in on it now. It goes in the reverse as well, where we're saying you can't act the way that you see people acting necessarily. You also can't assume that everyone has the same thresholds that you do. And I'm trying to think how best to phrase this, but I've seen a lot of things in recent days where people are saying, what do you mean harassment? That doesn't happen. This is like, just get over it, grow up, do whatever. It's not a big deal. It's just the internet. That's another important issue to me, is to not marginalize other people and what they feel may be a problem, because you don't know their thresholds. Not everyone has the same thresholds that you do.
And I think on a related note, there was people saying, "Oh no, that's not a thing here." It's like any other problem in society in the world. Just because you are not seeing it, and because it's not just because it's not necessarily happening publicly, does not mean it is not a problem. I am happy for you that it is not a problem for you, and that you do not have experience with it. That is awesome. But when you have 1.6 million registered users on a website, you don't get to see everything that happens. And just because it's not in your visibility does not mean it is not a problem for a person, or for a group of people, or for even a whole part of the site. And I think there was some demand from a couple individuals like, I don't know what you're talking about. This doesn't seem like it's a problem. I think you should send us links to the issues. And it's like, well, A, you're making an assumption that it's happening in a very public forum. And B, this is a skepticism that doesn't exist in a lot of real life stuff. Like when you were talking about RTX, and there are a lot of conventions, not even just RTX, a lot of conventions are having official harassment policies now that they're putting out. And everyone's like, yes, this is a great thing because this is a problem that happens. And I don't see harassment at conventions that I go to. I know it's there because I'm not ridiculous, but I don't see it. but I know it's a good thing to have that policy there and that it needs to be addressed. And everyone's all like, yay, we're putting this policy into place. But as soon as you try to do the same thing online, all of a sudden everybody's like, wait a minute. I think I need to see this for myself to think this is actually a problem that we really need to be investing our energy in. And that's not a healthy way to think about it either.
And even if you're right and it's not a problem, putting a policy in place is a good way to make sure it doesn't become one.
Exactly. Demano, to build off of what Jen and Grady said, with the code of conduct that you guys are batting around right now, this isn't so much a question as more of a suggestion, but I would really appreciate if there was the code of conduct up there to have that, if there is an issue of harassment, that not only should it be brought up with the admins and the mods, it should be left at the admins and the mods. Having, people calling for, I want to see it, send me the links. I mean, not only is that not their responsibility and horribly violating the privacy of other people, but I think if it's not explicitly discouraged, I'd hate to see people say, well, I'm being harassed and here's why, and then you have, 100 people jumping and saying, oh, that's not a problem, let me tell you, and kind of have this one-upmanship, marginalizing and belittling a problem to someone who feels very strongly about that. So, I mean, I don't think that will be a major issue, but I think just to explicitly discourage people from publicly posting information about harassment, about their personal harassment, unless they feel very comfortable sharing it, because then you also create witch hunts, and we don't like that. And let the mods and admins do what they do best, or what they're volunteering to do.
Yeah, and that also relates back to what I said earlier about, don't try to be Batman. Don't go vigilante and try to deal with things yourself and prove it's happening or not and help other people deal with it. The tools that we have are cooler than the tools that you have. I posted in the Skype chat, I gave an image of the banhammer to Jen and James, who were here at the time, and they now actually kind of know what that's all about, and I'm sure they can agree that is a much cooler tool to deal with things than anyone else has in this chat right now.
The banhammer is much more powerful than rounding up a posse of your friends to go and insult this person who was insulting you.
Right.
And the irony is, if you round up that posse of friends, you then start bullying the other person as a result, which is also against the terms of use.
Exactly.
Yep.
Harassment in an answer to harassment is not a solution. Now you're just another part of the problem. And a lot of people who go that route don't see that they're part of the problem because it's in the name of justice. So it's not the same thing, and it's totally fine that I'm doing this because they started it. And that's not how that works either. That's not how any of this works. As you going and taking it into your own hands beyond doing something like blocking them, that's now you're adding to the issue, and again, it's not helping anyone.
And just because I've been watching the chat, just to throw this out there, we're having this conversation isn't necessarily because harassment is now running rampant within the community, or it's suddenly become this lawless wasteland and the mods and admins aren't doing anything or whatever. It's this is a conversation that I think all of us can agree is important to have at this point where the community has grown as large as it is, as fast as it has, and it's something that we're no longer this tight-knit little group of a couple thousand users who hang out on this forum and watch the same video series. We're at 1.7 million users, and at that scale, this is an important conversation to have, that harassment, no matter how infrequent or small, is not tolerated, because that makes everyone feel safe. It's the same thing as putting into place an anti-harassment policy at a convention. You don't have to have had an instance of harassment at your convention to put that policy in place. You put it in place to discourage and prevent future incidents. And that's kind of what I hope the result of this conversation is that we discourage and prevent future incidents, not that we're, trying to make up for things that have happened in the past.
I think it's also worth pointing out, according to the site's statistics page, there are 5 forum posts made every minute. That does not count journals, comments on journals, replies to comments on journals, personal comments, images, links, comments in those. There is a lot of ground to cover on this site. And odds are there is harassment going on that we don't know about just because it's not being reported to us, because we can't be everywhere. So again, it is important, if it's happening, make sure that you tell us so we know about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Everyone has to let you guys know, because at that scale, unless every single person was an admin and a mod, there'd be no way to actively have a search and almost like a patrol going on, covering all aspects of the site at all hours of the day in every nook and cranny that there is. It's just impossible at that scale to make it even feasibly possible.
It's impossible to make it feasibly possible?
It's late, Grady. I worked a long day. I don't need your harassment right now.
All I'm hearing is, this doesn't seem physically possible in my head right now. Oh, gosh.
You're not wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that goes back to if you see something, say something. And the whole point is we want the community to continue to be a safe place and a comfortable place for everyone, regardless of if you do most of your social media on Reddit, or if you're on Tumblr, or if you're tweeting a bunch, or if you hide in a hole with a rock over your head in MySpace, or whatever that is now. Like, we want everyone to be able to come to Rooster Teeth, to the community site, and have a safe space and have a good time talking with the community and enjoying the community. And that's, so that's the idea. Get out in front of it, make sure that nothing happens in the future that would discourage someone from signing up or participating in the community site.
Yeah, ultimately the goal of the moderators and admins is to make sure that everyone has a good time by removing people who are detrimental to that.
Yeah, and vice versa. It's our job as community members to make sure everyone has a good time by having interesting discussions, by posting ridiculous videos and shitty art and good art and stupid comments and first on videos and all of that stuff.
No, you yell hobby, Grady. You know better than that.
Don't be such a pleb.
Screwed it up. Well,
something that has not been discussed yet on this call, and I don't know whether we want to get into it.
Sure, why not?
Is the difference between commenting on a person's own qualities and the qualities of something they've produced. So, for instance, if I'm an artist, there's a difference between insulting my art and insulting me.
Yes.
Absolutely. Kids go on the Wikipedia and look up the phrase ad hominem.
But be careful how you spell it. I feel like you could end up in some weird places if you're not careful.
Well, life's about the journey, not the destination.
Yeah, sometimes the journey is scary, and takes you to weird places of the internet.
All right, so the feed right now is just exploding with people yelling hobby. So apparently, nostalgia has flooded back into our chat room.
And they're all spelling it wrong. It's Hobbie.
Oh,
they are.
Yeah. Snap! You all, see, Dad laughing got it right. But yeah, I think that's something too. Is there's if you're going to make a comment on somebody's stuff, or if you're reading a comment on your own stuff, there is a difference between commenting on the work and commenting on the person. Some of the messages that I have personally gotten have been along the lines of that there is nothing that I say or do that is of any worth, and I only get attention for it because I happen to have boobs. And that's not, like, I'm all for criticism. Like, tell me how to make my stuff better. I would love to hear what it is that somebody thinks that I could do differently to make things more entertaining or just better all around, for whatever product I happen to be putting out at the time, whether it's a video or sewing something.
Well, have you tried not having boobs?
Yeah, and that's what it kind of sounds like. It's like, my obvious suggestion is for you to grow a penis. Like, that's what I'm getting, and that's not something with as much time as I've spent around radiation, if I haven't started sprouting things yet, I don't think I'm going to. So it's like, now you're just telling me that I'm not worth anything as a person. It's like, it's okay if you don't like my stuff. Not everybody's gonna like it. I probably don't like you either. It's totally fine. I don't have to like everybody. You don't have to like everybody. You don't have to like everybody's content, whatever that may be. But that doesn't mean that they're not an okay person. You don't get to attack a person because you don't like the stuff that they produce. That's just a load of crap. It's just a load of crap.
Yeah, there's a difference between I think this video sucks and I think you suck for making this video.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, and quite frankly, it's entirely possible that someone making either of those comments doesn't know the difference yet at this stage in their life. We all know that the explosion in popularity that has come from Achievement Hunter, Let's Plays, and those things has brought in a lot of younger fans, and a lot of community members now. A lot of the new members and things like that. They're still learning. They're still finding their way in the world, and maybe they just haven't had that lesson yet. Now, I'm not saying that it's necessarily our place to teach them that lesson, but maybe it is.
Maybe we should put that in the code of conduct. Links to ad hominem, straw man, and all the other logical debate fallacies.
The other distinction that I think is beneficial is the difference between constructive criticism and non-constructive criticism. Because it's one thing to say, this video sucks, and it's another to say, the mic quality was low.
Yeah, absolutely. Constructive criticism versus just not very helpful criticism. Another very key distinction that needs to be drawn.
Yeah, and it's possible to think that you're being helpful and not realize that you're not actually being constructive. Because if you just say, this was terrible, you may think that you're trying to encourage them to get better, when a better comment to encourage that would be to indicate what specifically you thought could be done better. That's constructive criticism.
Right.
This was bad is not.
Yeah, do you think it would be, having kind of hypothetical examples in the code of conduct would be beneficial? Or are we kind of getting a little too over the not over the top? It's just too specific to the point, like just specific ad nauseum.
At this point, it's undoubtedly something that will be discussed as we consider what to put in it. I can't really say with any sort of certainty or veracity whether it will be there or not.
I think we're getting close to the point where we're just running in circles and repeating ourselves, and I think we're coming close to having exhausted everything we can say on the subject.
I'm inclined to agree. I think we're at the point. I think we've all kind of made our points well, and I think we're able to have this conversation in a way that is kind of constructive, where it's not just saying, oh, boo bullying, but it's like, here's kind of the issue. Here's where the lines are and need to be, and what needs to be done by the community, by admins and mods, by anybody who witnesses or extreme sees something themselves of harassment or is being harassed, and things that would be nice to see on the Rooster Teeth side for dealing with it. And I think that's all been covered relatively well. So I don't know if we just kind of want to go through anybody who might have some final kind of closing thoughts and wrap this party up.
Let's actually really quick, because I saw the question come up.
Oh yeah, go for it.
in the chat, the question was, what can be said when a newcomer starts at the site? And I know there are like bits and pieces in like the first stop thread and things like that of like kind of how to get acclimated to the community and what to do and what not to do. What in everyone's opinion here, what's like the thing that's most lacking right now for someone just starting up in the community, like things they need to know?
I would say just off the top of my head, and someone actually beat me to it in the stream. I'm going to try to find who said it. Bluefire132 said it. I think when they agree to join the site, I believe that the terms of use are there before you click I agree. I think forcing them to see like a more general language code of conduct and immediately having links like, hey, immediately go here if you're going to post on the forum, because once you create your profile, there's nothing stopping you from just diving right into the forums and just skipping it, skipping that first stop. I think just putting it right in front of their face, knowing that, hey, here's information, should you choose to use it, we're not trying to hide it, it's right here when you first create your profile. I think that would probably be the best way to go about it, because as other people have said in the stream, the first stop thread has a lot of useful information there and good stuff for the people who make their way there and read it. It's just getting them there to read it is the problem, or the problem I would assume that there is.
I've never really liked that a lot of the important information is in a forum thread, in a forum that people aren't likely to go to.
Yeah, like, I will admit, like I said, I've been on the site for 2 years. I've really only kind of been active on it for 1. I only just the other day was like, I wonder what's in the first stop thread. Like, I never went there. It was not a place, it didn't sound like it was a place that would interest me, that I would need to go look at. And I was like, no, it's a forum, I can figure my crap out. So the idea that there would be anything in there that is not directly related to the forum, that would have never dawned on me.
Yeah, CWin90 said, could there be an automatic private message to users when they first create their account that has like the FAQs or links to the FAQs and other important things to go to? Maybe that's something that could be done in the interim until website 4.0 comes out, whenever it is.
Yeah, well,
The idea of putting the information in front of users directly upon signing up is something that has been suggested in the discussion that we're currently having, and it's something that we are considering. And it's going to come down to what we think is going to be the most user-friendly experience that still gets the point across, I think, is how it's going to end up.
Just out of curiosity, is RoosterTeeth like IT in on those conversations as well, or is it the admins and mods kind of kicking around ideas, and once they have their list of best ideas, then firing it up the chain of command?
That I can't tell you.
Fair enough.
My contribution to this, as far as what information I think should be more readily available to new users, is just exactly who's in charge. And we covered that a ton, but I think it needs to be clearer when you sign up, like who's doing what. All of these, all the Rooster Teeth staff, they have profiles and they're there, but it's not often that they take an active role in policing the community or issuing bans or anything like that, even though I presume they all have those powers. It's the site admins, and who are they? What do they do? Why are they here? Are you an employee of Rooster Teeth? Can you get me a job? No, the site admins are volunteers. What about the forum mods? Can they get me a job? No, they're also volunteers, and they take care of these particular forums and things like that. I think that's something that needs to be illuminated better, not just for new users, but for everyone. Who are you? What do you do? Why do you have this next to your name? Can you get me a job? Because let's face it, that's the question that you're going to get all the time.
Yeah, I get that a couple times. The other one I get is, how did you become a site admin?
Yeah, yeah, that's I'm sure that comes up quite a bit.
The great thing is the honest answer sounds like I'm trolling, so I get away with everything.
That's how you know it's
Would
a
you
good
like
answer.
to share?
Well, the honest answer is I told Matt to make me one, so he did.
Don't do
that-
that.
that's-
Anyone listening to this,
So
don't
everyone,
start messaging
everyone
Matt.
email Matt at.
At Caleb.
Don't do that.
No.
Stop
No,
the bullying.
no, don't do that. That's just bad. Don't harass Matt. Don't harass anybody else about being an admin. It's one of those. I think it's one of those things that's like if you have to ask on how to be one, you're not going to be one. Like at the point in time where you're going, oh, I want to be an admin. No, you don't. It's over before it starts.
Yeah. So I have seen a ton of messages in the chat as another contribution that no one brought up to the topic of what do new users need to know. A lot of people suggested that RT make an introduction video for the community, like to play when you sign up, and that would be really, really cool. And of course, that would require them to be able to take time away from Ruby, Red versus Blue, achievement